All right, Nick, let's talk about the Oklahoma Sooners. Oklahoma, I think there's a lot of promise with this program. We've seen a lot of good things, but if you look at the numbers, if you look at the data, there's been a little bit of dip in one area in particular, but Oklahoma not resting on their laurels. I think they've made some significant changes, and I think there's some really good signs for this team going forward. We'll get into all that in just a second here, but first, I'm Andrew. That's Nick, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, Nick, as I alluded to, a little bit of dip in production for the Sooners in one area in particular, but they're not going to rest on their laurels. They're going to get it taken care of. I'm going to go into all now, but first, I'm going to go to the chart first, something a little bit backwards from what we normally do, but I want to set ourselves up before we get into the article. So let's get into the chart and talk about where the dip was and what the Sooners are looking like. Let's look at this. This is a chart we have here showing the Oklahoma's recruiting class rank over the last 4 years, starting back in 2022. We see they were 8th overall in the country that year. 2023, they went up to 6th. 2024, back down a little bit to 8th. Then in 2025, a significant dip, all the way to 17th for the Sooners in the recruiting rankings. Not good. I think, being top 10 in the country, borderline, top 5 at times with this team is very good. That's where you want to be. That's where this team needs to be, especially being in the SEC. But moving over 2025, there's a lot on their plate. I know they had a lot of adjustments they had to make, but dipping all the way down, basically 10 spots falling in their recruiting rankings, not good. They needed to do something about it. But that's the good news here, is they were able to do something about it. And I think they did it in a really big way. And that leads me into our article here. Let's get on into it. And I can tell you the good news about what the Sooners are doing here. This is from SI.com and says, OU hired Jim Nagy, the former director of the then Senior Bowl, as the program's first general manager of football in February. He has now officially added to his front office staff. So these are the guys he's added to his staff. He has added Lake Dawson, a former Buffalo Bills assistant director of college scouting. He has hired Taylor Redd, the former scout for the New England Patriots. He has hired, or promoted rather, Drew Hill, has been with the team for 11 years in the Sooner scouting department. Somebody very familiar with the team. A lot of good news, a lot of good things about Drew Hill were said. Cale Pearson is a guy who's had an extensive scouting history, but also has been a United States Air Force Academy NFL liaison. He was the general manager at the Air Force Academy. So he's got some ties to the NFL as well, doing a lot of good stuff there. Stacey Ford is an interesting one to me. This is someone with a lot of scouting history, but extensively been out on the West Coast, whether it's Washington, UCLA, or other things of that matter. Really extensive history on the West Coast. So getting someone in who knows that side of the country as well. And finally, Charlie Parkinson, NFL scouting experience. And again, another guy like Nagy was a scout at the Senior Bowl. So a lot of experience here. And that says in total, this group of hires, including Nagy, has 60 years combined of experience in college football, 67 years of experience at the NFL level. That includes 36 bowl game appearances and 5 Super Bowl titles. So to say the least, this is a group of guys they've brought in the scouting department, have had a lot of success. They know what it takes to win games at both levels, both college and the NFL. And I think this was an absolutely brilliant move by the Sooners here to be able to go out and say, hey, we know that we had a dip. We know we need to change things. We are going to do it. They did it in a big way, bringing in some really special people to the scouting department. I think this was a huge move for them going forward. Curious what your thoughts are on this one, Nick. But before we get to you, Sooners fans, in the comment section below, let us know, what are your thoughts on all of this? Did you notice the dip in recruiting for the Sooners? Have you seen something? Do you think these are the kind of moves that are needed to change this program around? Or do you think this won't have that big of an impact? Personally, I think this is going to have a huge impact on the program. But let us know, what are your thoughts on everything? The dip, the solution. Do you feel comfortable with Venables and what his staff has done here in this regard? going forward in the comment section below. But nonetheless, Nick, what are your thoughts on everything going on with Oklahoma here?
Yeah, so there was clearly a problem, right? The data supports that, obviously, that there was an issue with Venables. And he got off to, I think, at the time when he came to Oklahoma, transition to the SEC, we said, okay, he's got a clear plan. Recruiting seems to be solid. It's heading in a decent trajectory, but something went wrong along the way. And one of the things that can clearly happen, and it happens to a lot of programs, they just kind of flounder. They just, well, this is who we are. We're going to keep going down this path, even if it's a total debacle. The data you showed supported Sooners were trending and are trending in a bad direction. They made the right moves that they needed to make. They changed up, promoted some people, made some decisions throughout their entire staff to correct the problem, because urgency is so important when it comes to recruiting. You ask fans of any blue blood that's down on hard times, they say, listen, it seems to get, you seem to be doing well, you seem to be doing great, you have a few down recruiting classes, and then it's a struggle to climb back out of it. It can take a long time. Ask Alabama fans before Nick Saban showed up. Ask Nebraska fans for the past 30 years, it seems like. It takes a long time to find the right guys and right combination of staff to pull yourself out of those recruiting doldrums. So let's give some credit to Coach Venables for making those key decisions throughout the organizations to make sure they're not going to fall into that pit. And we've seen some early returns. At the time of recording this video, they secured the commitment of four-star offensive lineman Noah Best. Looked at his film. This kid is a freaking beast, right? I don't know how he's not a five-star. I know it's all subjective, but he has great film out of the state of Texas. That's a great win. There's a lot of other good recruiting news selectively here and there at some key positions for Oklahoma going forward. So the early returns seem to be positive. We'll have to wait and see how it all shakes out. Of course, right? We're talking long game when it comes to recruiting, but it's very clear what we saw in Oklahoma on the field last year, the 2024 campaign. That's a noticeable talent dip, right? They had some veteran guys and they had some playmakers, but if you just look at the roster, the way it was in 2024 versus maybe 2022, 2023, that kind of time frame, and certainly before, it wasn't the same cadre of talent. And now, look, I understand part of that's Big 12 versus SEC. We all understand that, but the reality is it just wasn't the same level that we come to expect out of Norman, and I think Venables and his staff, and maybe with some outside influence, let's be totally honest, that probably was a big part of it, have realized we need to make some changes, and let's give credit where credit is due. They went out and did it, right? There's a lot of coaches that'll be stubborn. They'll fight to the bitter end. No, this is how I want to run my program. I like this staff. I like this guy, yada, yada, yada. And then eventually it completely falls apart, right? Venables recognizes that they are trending in a bad direction, make the changes. I think a lot of them are good moves. We've seen, like I said, some pretty good results so far. We'll see how it shakes out over the coming days, weeks, and months. But let's give some credit where the Oklahoma Sooners, recognizing a problem is very clearly in front of their faces, but more importantly, they made the decisions to change it. Moves like this that kind of slide under the radar, it doesn't get the headlines. But if we see in the next 6 months to a year a massive shift, a pivot back to some really good recruiting news and an increase in talent, we can look back at this decision by Brent Venables and his leadership, the Oklahoma leadership as a whole, making key changes to be part of the Sooners turnaround.
Yeah, Nick, and I think the way that they're going about this is very interesting. They're saying they're trying to move closer to a more professional model of college football. And I think when you hear Nagy and what he talks about for this new front office, and I think he used something really interesting here. He says it's been a deliberate process building the first front office in program history. So this is something they've never had before. This is a new concept for them, just having a formalized, more professional a cohesive front office unit in Oklahoma program history. He's saying it's really nice how it came together. And then I love this part. He says, we have a great blend of diverse backgrounds, complementary skill sets from both NFL and collegiate levels. We feel cumulative evaluation experience will give us a competitive advantage moving forward, going through an incredibly successful first official visit weekend the past few days has only affirmed we uniquely positioned ourselves to build elite rosters. So there you go. Already, they think through their first official visit weekend as a unit. They did a really great job, and they think things are moving in the right direction here. But this is a first for Oklahoma, a new way of doing things. They've completely revamped it. Not anything. They're not, keeping their anything at all. They've thrown the baby out with the bathwater. They're going in a completely new direction here. And I think that's it. The new blend. And as I went through and read what everyone brings to the table, it's just that, like you said, a cohesive NFL guys, college guys, East Coast, West Coast, Senior Bowl, people who are all around the country, just that cohesive blend of scouts. I think they can't go wrong there. I think this is going to be a solid move for Oklahoma going forward. I don't think they're going to be number one in the country in 1 year. But I think as we see this moves on, we're going to see a return to the norm. And I think we're going to see a much better recruiting style going forward for them. And I think we're going to see, that, top 8. But then I expect them to not just return to the norm, but get even better afterwards because of this.